The only thing people pay for is your opinion of the solution that can be created. And in the world where you don't know your voice because you either never slowed down enough to ask, or you've never asked the really simple questions and dug into the layers, you sound and look like just everybody else. And that is a really dangerous place in a marketplace because it makes you easily replaceable, hard to remember, and truthfully don't really deliver what you promised.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. As entrepreneurial experts, what's the one thing we're seeking all the time? Leads. And we'll take that one a step further, attracting leads on a consistent basis through a repeatable process. You probably know the old saying, if it happens once, it's just luck. Today, our guest is Christine Campbell Rapin, a Tell It Like It Is mentor, speaker, and best-selling author. She's also the CEO and owner of Clear Acceleration, Inc. Christine has supported more than 400 businesses to create a combined revenue of over $1 billion in revenue by creating a consistent client growth engine. Let's find out how she does it.
Christine, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited about this because if I just had the good leads, man, if I just had the good leads, right? That's everything. We're going to get into that. But before we do, tell us a little bit about you. Like, what's your background? How did you end up in this space?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like a bit like a unicorn because I never set out to be a business mentor. That wasn't like I got up one day and thought, gee, I should go do that. Truthfully, I have a really eclectic story. I am a Canadian born. I've lived in 5 countries, 30 cities, some more than once. And the one thing that's consistent is all of it's been in the world of business. Either watching my dad, watching my siblings, going into the world myself. And I started to get a lot of invitations for coffee and glasses of wine. And people say, what gives? How come business is really simple for you? And I said, you're doing the hokey pokey, my friends. Business isn't that complicated. And I found myself being invited into other people's business dreams. And today I have this beautiful business that came on a career of 25 years where I learned marketing. And then I said, it's pretty. And they said, that's irritating. I said, well, it's got to do more than that. Found myself in business development. And then I would look at something and say, can't we deliver what we promised? Because I need to deliver what we promised and sleep well at night. And I found myself in operations. And today I have that real ability to pull the through line so that you create success. And I want to see more business owners win because watching people give up on their dreams, run out of runway, we don't need more of that in the world. We need to turn the tide.
Agreed.
Yeah, couldn't agree
Speaking
more.
our language.
Yes, you are. And I'll tell you a couple of things to demonstrate that, Christine, why I love you so much. First of all, we talk about anybody can build a pretty brand, but unless it's purposeful and profitable, it's actually pretty pointless, right? We talk a lot about that. Plus, when you say, why can't we just deliver what we promise? We have a quality control checklist, and every one of those things gets checked off, and it is perfect before it gets checked off. And that is so important to not only delivering what you promised and what your clients paid for, but your reputation. So hats off to you. I love your direction.
Thank you.
So I got a quick question for you. Let's just go dive head first right into this. You talk about 3 non-negotiable business foundations that give you repeatable success. What are those 3?
Well, the first thing is you have to get clear the ability to identify and attract your next client. I think a lot of people think that that's marketing avatars and great psycho and demographic information. And I'm like, that's important, but it is not necessarily the most important thing to find out who your next client will be. And it's really dangerous to spend time building the assumption that your current client or your past client will be where your next client meets you, because it's not true. They're at an earlier place in the continuum of experience, and you've got to go to meet them where they are. And a lot of people truthfully have no idea who they're looking for. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Second piece of the puzzle is that you have to have a strategy, an ability to have a plan that moves somebody from curious to paid client, ideally, predictably, profitably, and frequently. And a lot of people go, well, I just have all these tactics. I'm like, tactics are great and every tactic works, but if you don't have a plan, really hard to create repeatable success. The third piece of the puzzle is that you have to understand value creation and leadership, which is you have to know what result somebody will pay for in the eye of the next buyer. And you also have to be crystal clear what makes you the must hire.
I like it. I like it. 3 automatic takeaways right off the bat.
Yep.
So which one do you think the businesses get wrong most?
Well, I think truthfully, they don't know what they're selling and they think the answer is marketing. I honestly think that's sometimes the biggest challenge. So many people come into my business and just say, if I could just solve the marketing, that I would have this beautiful business. And I always find that fascinating because I say, the right marketing when you're not sure who you're serving and you don't know what you're selling is the equivalent of lipstick on a pig.
Mm-hmm.
It sure is.
It's really pretty, but super useless. And I think the biggest challenge is so many people don't know what they're selling. And so I think that is often, nobody wants to acknowledge that. Nobody wants to hear that and say, truthfully, why would I hire you? What are you selling? And they're all like, blah, 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 blah. And it gets all this, I'm like, garbage. Sounds good. Is it true? Does it do what you say on the tin it says it's going to do? And everyone goes, I need to run away.
Yeah.
Let's just put a really pretty package on it. And unfortunately, in the world of marketing, there are a lot of people who will put pretty packages around it, but it doesn't create and solve the problem if you don't know who you are and what you're selling and what result people will pay for. I think the biggest market gap is there. People think the answer is the window dressing of marketing. And I said, you have to have both in a handshake if you want a business.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And you emphasize the importance of value-based offers. Can you share an example of how you've helped clients restructure their offering to dramatically improve conversion rates?
Absolutely. Some of the biggest challenge people say is, I want to, for example, I have a client who runs a video production company, and they think that the answer and what they're selling is a finished video. And I said, well, anybody can create a video, truthfully, and AI now can do it in 20 minutes or less. Your value is not in the creation of the thing. It's in the interpretation of the thing and in the impact creation of the thing and doing something with the thing that is what people will pay for. Because they will only rave about your product when it creates results. And it isn't the thing itself that creates the result. It's why does this matter? What will I do with it? How does it create movement? And what does that ripple create for the greater good? And I said to my client when he first came on board, you're not in the video production space. Stop dumbing yourself down to that common denominator. What you do is help people use this effectively so that they create this outcome. And that outcome is what they pay for, not the video itself.
Could not agree more.
I like
it
that
is
a lot.
What is on the other side of doing business with you? What's on the other side of that? I remember back in, I started this, my media career back in 1988, and I did that for 18 years. And I consulted after that media sales reps and helping them figure out what to pitch to their clients. And I would say, okay, what idea or solution are you going to take to your clients? And they'd say, well, I have an overnight commercial package that I'm going to send to them. And then I have a half page ad over here. I said, no, whoa. What solution are you taking to your clients? Not what widget, not what program, not what course or consulting thing. What are you going to solve for them? How are you going to help them solve it? And that was huge. And finally, like you said, they turn around and run, right? Because they don't want to think that deeply for it. Is that what you're finding too? Is it that they don't want to think that deeply, or they've never thought that deeply before, so it just kind of burns their brain a little bit?
I think it is both. I think in the world of AI, it's getting really rare. And let me just be crystal clear. The only thing people pay for is your opinion of the solution that can be created. And in the world where you don't know your voice because you either never slowed down enough to ask, or you've never asked the really simple questions and dug into the layers, you sound and look like just everybody else. And that is a really dangerous place in a marketplace because it makes you easily replaceable, hard to remember, and truthfully don't really deliver what you promised.
Right.
And so much in the world right now, I see in the world of AI, well, I'm going to outsource my voice. I said, it is the categorical number one thing I will never do. I want people to know the unfiltered, unedited version of me, and you can take me or leave me. I'm okay with both. Never will I let some AI system aggregate a million voices into mine. And in the world right now, part of it is that's the easy path for many.
Yeah.
And I said, there's a real renaissance coming in the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, where you're going to see, and I even see it now in my email inbox, this was authentically curated at 10:32 in the morning without the help of AI. And I'm like, you're the email I'm going to read today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
Couldn't agree more with that, because we're going to get to a point where we're not going to settle for that kind of thing. You know, we talk a lot about using AI and how and it is critical for some things. It's really awesome, but we look at it this way. It's garbage in, garbage out, or
Yes.
gold in, gold out, right? And if you're looking for assistance in a few things here or there, it's cool, but don't ever let it represent you.
Right.
It can be a brainstorming partner, and it can help,
Absolutely.
tap into what is the market asking? Because remember, one of the cool things is that if you're doubting for a second that your next client is out there, let me just remind you, Google, Pinterest, YouTube have billions of searches every week. People are searching, but don't mistake the answers they find for the solution they need. And that's key. You can get the data, you can get the information, but how will you apply it? What will you do with it? What is the result that's created? That is what really where value is created. And so in a world of this space, I would never encourage somebody to abdicate, give away, or fail to spend the time really getting clear, who am I? What do I stand for? Where do I want to play? And how will I show up there?
I agree, 100%. We that's exactly what we preach every day. That's authentic, really and truly. How do you help clients balance the desire? Because this is exactly where I would be, right? How do you get them to balance the desire between quick results and sustainable business solutions and foundations? Because, we need it right now.
Yesterday.
I'm starving yesterday. So
Yeah.
like, how do you find that balance?
Well, the first thing I always do to people is remind people that it is dangerous to think everything's a numbers game, and yet numbers matter. I believe business is elegantly simple. And so I want to remind my clients, and I want to remind anybody listening to this, one conversation can lead to one client. Don't ever forget the power of that. Humans do business with humans, and you've got to be able to identify a need, solve a problem, connect, and be seen as the must hire for this engine to fire up. So the first thing I would say is remember it can be simple. And yet at the same time, if you show up and don't take the actions that are required consistently without the gratification of immediate results, quit the field. It's not how the game is played. I think it's important for people to know that it's important you fall in love with the process, because what I control as a business owner is showing up. I control the effort I put out into the world, but I never am a direct control of when it gravitates, moves, says yes. But truthfully, if I compound the truth of all the things that I can stack in the actions I take, without a doubt, in my business, I never chase the money. I chase 3 things. I got your name from someone, and that's because they heard about me from someplace. I would like to know what you think, which means somebody's going to value my opinion. And the third thing in my world is, what questions am I not asking that your 25 years of experience in $1 billion say I should pay attention to? And that means that truthfully, I am not like everybody else. And those 3 things are the engine piece of it and the scalability of it. And you have to have a vision that you can see and not get stuck in the how, but recognize what you do matters in the daily actions. Without that, always go back to one conversation to the right person and the right opportunity can always lead to yes.
Yeah, I love that more than you know. But like I'm in the real estate space, right? So I'm constantly training real estate agents and working with them on sales process and farming and how to show up and how to be there. And first, I always start with that. I'm like, if you're in this business because you saw it on HGTV and you think that it's easy and you're going to make a whole lot of money, you need to get out of this business. If you're in this business because you really truly like to, show people houses, if you're looking for that look, that glazed over look when know they're fixing to say, this is the one, right? Then you're going to be okay in this business. You have to do your craft every day, because the work that you put into this one may not send you a paycheck, but what they say about you later might bring you dozens of paychecks. And is that right? Am I on the right path there?
100%. And what I tell people is, remember, two things predict your revenue. You control both. Number one is your business will be built on strangers. So you need to go get in front of more people, more ways, more often. And the key to business success is I can identify a buyer. And that's that glazed over look you're talking about. Second thing is, nothing happens if I don't lead the offer. And that's an important part of it too. It's like, it's not enough to just educate. And this is something I think is often misunderstood in the marketplace. And when we're nervous and we're not seeing clients, it's really easy to just vomit stuff at people.
Yes.
Trust me, everybody does it. But the truth is, knowledge is so freely available that if you have a client that is only asking, how do I do this? They're not going to be your buyer, because the answer is not a how answer. You know how. You can Google how. The issue is, how do I take this and apply it and do it? Well, that's where all the value gets created. And so I remind people, if you want to be great in business, know what predicts your revenue and show up with a discipline and a love for, I will do these things ad nauseum. Because business, when it's really successful, is truthfully boring. And that's a good thing. It creates cash flow. It creates stability. It creates predictable results. And everybody gets what they want. Sometimes the biggest thing creatives struggle with is, I have this constant need to create. I said, go sell what you're creating if you want a business.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like,
Exactly.
oh, Christine. I'm like, oh, Christine.
And it can get that way too. Like, you can't, you're right.
Easily.
When it's moving like it's supposed to be moving, there are times where you're going to stand there and you'll be like, man, I don't feel challenged. This is working too good, and then that comes next level problems, right? How do I scale it? Where do I go? We can get into that another podcast at some point. I really feel like you're speaking to those people that are just like, okay, this is how I'm going to generate these leads that really lift me up.
Yeah.
And your takeaways are fantastic.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to this next question, Christine. You have an interesting concept you call client waterfall versus traditional lead generation. So what's the difference, and why is your client waterfall concept more effective?
Well, this always goes back to that simplicity. So never forget that a waterfall starts with one drop. And it is a lot of single drops that create this really big, awesome, amazing thing that can truly carve stone and change directions and change the landscape. And so when I'm looking at client generation, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, it's the power of one. It is the power of recognizing that one person, one conversation, one action, one thing, one we can commit to and be exceptional at delivering. So the waterfall concept is always about the power of one. The one step moved in movement creates momentum. Second piece of that is that it is about knowing the value of the future you cannot predict. Because remember this, people pay you to predict a future that both of you are uncertain around. Mm-hmm. Think about the movement. Think about the forward outcome. Think about the destination, vision. That is what drives everything. And in the world of this, I said, I show up cascading movement. And that's what the waterfall is. I'm the drop, I'm leading, I'm pushing the momentum forward. Traditional lead gen is hunting, capturing, killing, and really closing. And I have a lot of issue with that word because it means I led to an end. Waterfalls never stop moving. I never see a client coming into my business as a closed opportunity. I see it as a beginning of movement. And that's a whole fundamental shift. And my goal over time with any client or anybody, even in my network, is how do I create movement, flow, one drop at a time so that you can create big ripples of change. That's how I show up in the world. And as a result to it, it's a very different philosophy. And truthfully, I don't lack for leads. I do always look for the right opportunity. And that's this discernment that many people would probably envy. But I said, that's the truth of what I've created. I'm also really 100% sure I'll be here in 5 years. Are you? Right?
Right.
Different kind of approach.
Totally different. Totally
Love
different.
where you're coming from. It's completely different. And the confidence level that backs that up proves that it's the goods. It's the goods. Justin has the goods. Just love it. So one final question before we go out. What's the biggest misconception about building authority in today's digital landscape?
I think it's the philosophy of that if I just say it loudly, that I will have authority. And I think that people forget the power of the authenticity, Michael, that you talked about. I don't need to shout this from the rooftop because the track record behind me is evidence. And I think that, I always joke about the New York Minute. I said, in New York, there's a philosophy. I once heard this, he who says it loudest wins the argument. And I think that in authority, a lot of people think that that's true. It's not. You don't have to be loud. You have to be consistent. You have to be found. You have to be certain on what you stand for. And when you do that, you can do it in a way that is authentic. I think the biggest misconception people often have, and they hear it from bad business advisors, is there's one way to grow. Well, I've worked with 400 companies. Everybody had a different gameplay. There were 5 foundations we ran, but they all did it differently. And as a result of that, when you show up and stay in movement, that's authority building. Not because you said it, but because you lived it, you were it, you embodied it, and you stayed committed to the path. It's easier than you think.
Yeah, I love that. So well said. So well said. And it starts with putting that foot in front of the other, right? Tanya always said that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And
I stole that somewhere. I'm going to be that's transparent.
It's worth stealing.
Right?
Yeah, you repurposed it.
Yeah, I don't know who to attribute it to because it tells me there's no single source for it, but I did hear it somewhere else.
Yeah, well, that makes Tanya my source for it, and I agree. I agree with it 100%. And like you said, you also mentioned consistency, and consistency is something that is my favorite part of all of it. Because there's a difference in committing to throw one stone off the bridge every day that you pass it, and then on one day just saying, well, here's a handful and I'm done. There's a huge difference in the two. You have to commit to it, and you have to consistently do it every day. Now, even when, like you said earlier, even when you're not sure of the outcome today, and you just have to believe in that.
You have to be the spark of your own business. Like if we're talking to business owners, I tell people this all the time. You have to be the spark. You're the genesis. You're the ideation. You're the creator of it. You can have other people around you that are fuel sources that add gasoline to a fire, but it is not anybody else's responsibility to light it.
Right.
And truthfully, I want more business owners to feel like their business is oxygen, not the only thing you breathe, but something that is so compelling that I'm prepared to be disciplined. Because you said it earlier, the big challenge for business owners is the compound effect. And I said to people, not every season needs to be Mach 10 hair on fire. We got to stop glamorizing that, but you can adjust your speed. But to me, it feels like breathing. So I show up and breathe.
I love it.
I love it.
So how, Christine, can people work with you? How can they reach? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Thank you for that. It is super simple. I know, shocking, right? Come find me. Christine Campbell Rapin's my name. ChristineCampbellRapin.com is where you'll find me. You can connect to me many ways through that simple starting block. And I invite you to take the first step today.
Oh, Christine, you are lovely. Thank you so much. This is incredible. I think we align in thought in so many ways, but you brought some amazing fresh stuff today. So thank you for taking time with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.